Hello, Kevin.
Is this the Carriveau?
Is this the Kevin Chalfant?
Somewhat, yes.
It's nice to hear your voice. I haven't talked to you in forever.
I know it. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Too long.
I'm glad you're coming to town. So Friday at the Arcada in St. Charles. Have you been there before?
Yes, I've been there several times.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah. It is. It's actually a really good sounding room.
Mm-hmm.
And I just came up to see my buddies in 38 Special I don't know, couple 2-3 weeks ago.
2-3 weeks ago.
2-3, yeah. They hang around the Onestes, you know.
Yeah. Did Ron cook for you?
He's going to be on the 30th. Yeah.
Ooh, that's a reason.
Yeah.
Do they pay you as well, or he just feeds you? Because that'd be enough, really.
Well, he's kind of doing both a little bit. I love the Arcada Theater.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It really is. It's old school.
Yeah. Have you been upstairs? Because they have that cool, like, speakeasy.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and the food is unbelievable.
Yes. So you're on stage with who? It's not just Kevin Chalfant. There's other rock legends of rock radio.
John Elefante, who is the former lead vocalist of Kansas, and Fran Cosmo is a former singer of Boston.
Yeah, and those guys, when they joined those bands, it was difficult. Fran had to replace Brad Delp.
Wow.
And John had to replace Steve Walsh. Did he play keyboards too?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, no easy task. No, those are big shoes to fill.
You're right. And the thing about Fran, Brad was kind of wanting to step away. He was, try singing that stuff by yourself. And so he left and Fran came in. And then Brad came back and they kept Fran in and they kind of took care of one another. Fran had done a couple of records with him by that point, and Brad had all the big hits with him. So, it was like they were a support team for one another.
That's good.
And that really worked out. Now, I'll tell you, with John Elefante, John came into Kansas, and they actually had I think they had hits that went higher than with Steve Walsh. I think they actually had a number one hit.
I think Play the Game might have been with him.
Play the Game was, I think, way up there on the chart.
Yeah.
And, and then John started like doing some Christian music, and that he thought, I'm going to go that direction. And when he left Kansas, I mean, him and his brother Dino opened up the Sound Kitchen in Nashville and had 8 of the best studios under one roof, and they basically took all of the work from all the other studios, and they were like the moguls,
Nice. And
they were producing just about every Christian artist. I had never met John. We talked on the phone for like 3 years, talking, and we just became buddies. And then another guy hired both of us, and so here we are on somebody else's show. And it was actually really a great way to meet, because it was like, you never want to bring a new dog into the house. You want to take them somewhere else, have them meet somewhere, and then come back home together, right?
Right.
So that's how I kind of view it, is that I kind of like to vet everybody I work with, because I kind of I only have one rule with the Voices of Rock Radio. It's an a-hole free zone.
Oh gosh, could we apply that rule everywhere? That'd be nice. Yeah.
You see, if everybody did, you wouldn't have all this stupidity.
Yeah,
going
there'd be
on.
no people left.
So we really hit it off, and John had a ton of work to do, and he was actually handing off work to other bands. And I said, John, let's just merge, because I was getting shows. Mine were more ticketed events, and his were more corporate and sort of faith-based fundraisers and all kinds of stuff like that. And together, we've done really well. We've cherry-picked fantastic musicians from all over the country, from L.A., Nashville, Tulsa, Colorado Springs, but the band we have right now is just wonderful. 2 really smoking hot guitar players.
What do you mean smoking hot? Good looking, or they just play guitar really well?
Well, I don't know. You'll have to come and see.
So what is your relationship to Journey? I want to hear the story about your connection with Journey. I know the Storm too.
Well, actually, my Journey experience started when I joined 707.
Oh, I Could Be Good For You is one of my favorite songs of all time.
I actually came in right after that record, but I got to sing that all the time. I was on Megaforce, and
Yeah.
it was a movie title and stuff, and Jonathan Cain was working in the studio with Keith Olsen, Keith Olsen was like the number one producer in 1981. He did everybody from Foreigner to Fleetwood Mac to Pat Benatar. You know, he had produced Rick Springfield. Everybody that was like hot on the radio at that time, that was Keith Olsen. So we went Keith was already booked way up, but Jonathan was in there working with his then wife, Tawny Cain, who had a record deal on RCA and was working with her on a record. And she was coming down with something. So there was a break for about 2 or 3 days, and we got to go in to the studio with Keith, and Jonathan was just hanging out at the studio every day. And we worked this song Megaforce we were cutting with him, with Keith. And one morning we came in, and Jonathan had like worked up this big iconic intro going in the song and stuff. And so he was into it. It was great. So he was actually the first Journey member that I had met.
Mm-hmm.
And we lived, I told him, I got kids, I got a couple boys. What's a good town in Northern California? And he said, come up to Novato, man. It's like a little country town. And I'm like, I'm there. That's where I'm coming from. So, and we were buddies. And then one thing led to another. And I started like running into people. I got introduced to Ross Valerie, and Ross had just left Journey for the first time.
I was going to say, which time? Yeah, okay.
And then he and I started a band called The View with all these great musicians. Prairie Prince, who was the drum tubes.
Yep.
Prairie Prince was actually the original drummer at Journey. I learned a lot of history about the bands in San Francisco when I lived out there. Everybody played musical chairs, and whoever got the deal, that's who we're going with.
Right.
So Prairie got a deal with the Tubes before Journey got signed, and he left the band, and that's when Ainsley Dunbar came in. And when everybody thinks that Ainsley Dunbar was the original drummer, he was actually the second. I started doing sessions, background vocal sessions with a lot of different bands. One Night Ranger, and then Greg Raleigh and I got called into a session, and we had never met. And we were singing together, and we were both looking at each other going, man, that sounds pretty darn good. That's what led to The Storm. Greg and I were the two lead singers in The Storm. Well, after we had toured like a couple of tours, Ryan Adams and with Peter Frampton and, just a bunch of different bands, Journey was off the road at that time. So Herbie was our manager. He was Journey's manager, and he had been trying to get Steve to come out of retirement. And Steve had some hip problems or something, and so Herbie was kind of angling like, hey, I think I'd like to. Kevin's a proven guy. He's been out there doing it. Let's. So there was an arrangement to book Kevin with Journey, and after one show, it was like they put my picture on the cover of the Disco Chronicle, and it was all over. And, it's kind of weird, but there were certain magazines that always dissed Journey. They didn't treat them good.
I remember that.
You remember that?
Yeah.
They always are like, these guys are too, like, corporate and all this and that. I don't know if that was the furthest thing from the truth. They were doing heavier pop music is all they were doing. When you have a great singer like Steve Perry, honestly, the guy could have sung the phone book.
Exactly.
Seriously, And so he was kind of wounded then and didn't really want – he wasn't ready, and they were ready. They just wanted to do it, so they just threw me out there like a raw hamburger to see if any wolves would – and they actually bit. So we started working on an album together, and I'm bouncing around to everybody's house writing songs, and we had written a pretty good bunch of songs, and people stopped calling Steve, and I think I just remember one time he went on MTV and said, well, it looks like the band has found another singer that I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was something to that effect, and kind of put a shockwave out,
Mm.
and meanwhile, I was kind of told that somebody that was in that building that the night that I performed with them, because it was like All Star, the Moby Grape came back together, and I know Robert Plant was there, and Joan Jett, and Greg Allman, and I mean it was just like a bunch of rock stars hanging out together playing, and it was a fundraiser. It was a fundraiser for like inner city mentors. They were trying to put kids up with people who were really legendary lawyers and doctors and rock stars or whoever, and they were starting a mentor program, and it was kind of cool. The aftermath of that was like, I don't think Steve liked having somebody else get that attention, and he just said, "Hey, I think it's time for me to come back home and let's make a record." And for whatever it's worth, of course, I was a little disappointed,
Of
but I was
course.
just as happy to see that at least I was always a Journey fan. I mean, if I was in it, that'd have been great. If Steve Perry's coming back, I know everybody will love it. That's great. So it was like, you do favors in the business, and
Yeah.
it just has so happened that it led us all kind of down the road again and back in the spotlight. So I made a lot of friends. I met a lot more singers, and that's kind of the guys who I'm working with now in this. Just pulling rock stars in to do shows, and it's
Cool.
fun.
And
It's really fun.
yes, Stephen Perry, of course, has an iconic voice. You do too. If I were to describe your voice to someone, I would say if Steve Perry and Don Henley had a baby boy.
Love how you put that.
Yeah.
I'm a bouncing baby.
Yeah. Friday, May 30th at the Arcada. You can still get tickets. It's going to be a great show.
Thank you, Cara.